Hi, this is Chuck Stell with a brief introduction to the research project. As I said in class, this project is an important component of its class and one that does take quite a bit of time. But one of the things that is really valuable about this project is that with the kinds of research that you're doing, you can actually find out something new. You can discover something that no one knows yet. Right? So it's really different in that sense than library research, where you are simply finding things that people have already written about. Right? You're able to find out things that no one knows as of this point. So let me walk through some of the steps. And the first step, the one that is due this week, is to choose a topic. And really the proposal, which is due on Friday, is that you present a topic and your major research questions. Now, these are broad questions to shape your research. These are not specific survey questions. These aren't questions that you will be asking individuals necessarily, but these are the things that you would like to find answers for. For example, if your topic is on student spending, some research questions might include: what are the biggest spending categories for students? How does family income affect student spending? Do men and women have similar averages when it comes to spending? And then later, we will develop survey questions to address those kinds of research questions. So for the proposal, I'm really looking for the broad topic and some broad questions that would be interesting to find answers for. Past classes, and these are just some direct quotes, do say that it's important to choose a topic that you care about because you spend a lot of time with it, that you should choose a broad topic, not something very narrow, in order to have enough questions and to complete all of the required statistics. And then the detailed questions will come from that broad topic. And they also advise, as I will advise you, is that you want to collect lots of numeric data. You want to have lots of numbers available in your study, in your survey, so that you'll be able to do the analysis. So think about things you can ask numbers on as opposed to just qualitative or categorical variables. I do want to emphasize that the topic needs to relate to economics or business. Now, there are a huge variety of possibilities. Marketing research, broadly thought of for products and services, planning, which should include management and decision-making, looking at competitors and competition, consumer beliefs about different brands, or policy would broadly fall under economic questions. And there are many different sources of inspiration. You could look to the news and ask questions about the pandemic and how people are responding to that, or ask about the recession. You could look at social media power, which has been in the news frequently, both from the left and the right. You could look at something as close to home as the expense of textbooks. Many of these topics can be applied directly to Kalamazoo College, and we have had students who have done campus consulting projects for the bookstore, for the career and professional development, for different student organizations, for administrative offices, and there certainly are others possible. And I do give a bonus if you have a client who you're working for, but it does tend to add a lot of time to your initial survey development. The next steps we'll talk about in more detail, but I just wanted to mention them now, and that is you are going to write a survey and ask real people to answer your questions, and so you want to think about who you will be talking to. Right, and so we'll look in detail about methods in terms of once you've defined your population of interest. It could be Kalamazoo College students. That's a very frequently studied group. But again, there's a bonus if your group is bigger than that. But then you need to choose a random or representative sample, and we'll talk about methods to do that. We will talk about writing surveys and have a draft and a test of your survey before it goes out. And then the survey will be distributed to your sample, and they will hopefully answer it. We never get everyone to answer, but hopefully you get a decent response rate, and that will give you a nice data set to work with. Again, I've asked for advice from previous classes, and they have said start early, plan on plenty of time. They do recommend working with a partner, even though there can be frictions with that, and to really think about what it is you are asking. The next step will be statistical analysis, and so far we've only talked about the very first level, and we haven't even discussed using Excel yet, but we will calculate descriptive statistics, so things like the mean and the standard deviation, perhaps medians and modes and percentages, depending what your questions are. And then the other analysis, and this is all laid out in the assignment, will be to create some confidence intervals, which we are starting to develop some tools for, a hypothesis testing, which we will take up later, and then regression and correlation, which looks at relations between variables, which we'll be talking about reasonably soon, and then return to later in the term. Again, sharing some advice from your predecessors in this class. Do take every step of the process seriously. And think about what comparisons are going to be meaningful. The final stage of the overall project is to interpret and report your results, and that can be fairly straightforward once we have worked through all the statistical analysis. Again, some advice from your predecessors. This can be a very fun project if you choose a topic that you really love and want to learn more about. So that's why I want to really emphasize, think about something that you'd be interested in learning about and would like to put into some context. Let me finish with just a couple of examples of past studies. This is one that was a really ambitious study, and it asked high school students living in Michigan. I believe they were all high school students in AP classes to rate various colleges just on a 1 to 10 scale. But it also had an option for if they didn't know the school that they, well enough to rank it, that they could choose that. And the chart you see in front of you shows the schools that the percentages of students in Michigan who are unable to rate these. So if we look at the very bottom, nearly everyone knew Harvard well enough to rate it, and similarly with Michigan and Michigan State. Western Michigan had a little bit more, about 30% of the people couldn't rate Western Michigan, a little bit more for Northwestern and Central Michigan. As we go to the smaller schools, the liberal arts schools, we can see that Albion and Hope, over 40% of the people couldn't rank it. And K, which of course was really the question that our researchers were interested in, over 60% of students didn't know K well enough to rate it. If we look at some really highly ranked national liberal arts colleges, Kenyon, Oberlin, and Amherst, even higher percentages of Michigan high school students were unable to rank those. So anyway, that was a super ambitious study, and one that I think turned into a SIP later on. But a more typical study was one looking at coffee shops, and so they had a sample of I believe these were all K College students, and simply asked them, how many times they visited coffee shops in the last 7 days. And you can see from the pie chart, right, 19% had not been to a coffee shop, 38% had been once or twice, 31% 3 or 4 times, 9% 5 or 6, and 3% had been at least 7 times in the last week. So anyway, those are just a couple of examples, and hopefully you will come up with something that you are interested and exciting on working with. Anyway, this is Chuck Stull. I will see you on Teams.